Here are some recommendations that I'm going to propose to prevent future crime, especially corporate crime, from occurring. So I'm going to quickly go over the overviews of issues that I found within my research, and that was sovereignty, under-resources, databases, control, rapid growth with globalization, and the pyramid of enforcement. So first I want to discuss sovereignty, and that is jurisdictional, meaning it doesn't apply to all countries and that they hold no power to sanction once a person or corporation has entered a specific country. Agencies have lack of funding and means to investigate certain crimes because there is no access to resources. Therefore, this leads into databases, which there isn't a succinct one that we can all use. Implementing a national one, according to Bartel, it would allow for more transparency and would be good to prevent crime. Pyramid of enforcement is the focus that it's either to find negotiation or come to a settlement. These generally don't persuade a person or corporation, issue a warning letter, or impose a sanction. Therefore, it wouldn't be the best means in trying to prevent crime. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the domestic responses, and I'm going to introduce two new ways. So we've got corporate social responsibility, which dives into Carroll's pyramid, and we've got piercing the corporate veil. So Carroll's pyramid of corporate social responsibility helps companies think about CSR holistically. If one level is missing or under-resourced, the great pyramid of the CSR never gets built. This is how organizational leaders can focus on each level while addressing all the layers of the CSR, making it a solid recommendation for future generational corporate crime to be avoided. Recent research in the journal Management Science found that companies practicing CSR demonstrated higher profit margins, increased valuation, and lower risk. Researchers even discovered that CSR has the tendency to boost product differentiations, meaning consumers leaned towards companies with a solid CSR reputation, as well as deliver a more stable return on assets, even amidst economic fluctuations. So the pro of this is that it improves company profitability and value. When we speak about piercing the veil, the significance of the corporate veil lies in the creation of limited liability. The motives for this wider type of veil piercing are compensation and deterrence, and the liability or, in specific circumstances, to be imposed on comparant companies. Okay, so I'm going to be focusing my recommendation more on Carroll's pyramid. We've got philanthropic, ethical, legal, and economic. And as you can see here, each of them have the following of what they represent underneath. Okay, so on and so on. So first one is that businesses are expected to give back. The second one, being ethical, is that societal expectation. We value what the society gives back to us, therefore we have to have that common ground. Organizations must comply with laws, which falls under the legal, following the law. And the final one is economic. Organizations need to create profit through that growth. Without succeeding, businesses don't do so well. And that's as what we see, and how corporate crime is often avoided, or overlooked, I should say, is because that some corporations don't even know what's going on. Therefore, this implementation of a new social innovation is very essential into preventing corporate crime. So, limitations. CSR is innovative, however, without implementation, it would not work. It relies on investors, consumers, and communities to pressure firms to engage in more CSR activities. It's viewed as developed countries' protectionist measures aimed at undermining the competitiveness of developing countries. It does have this idea of greenwashing, which is a term used to describe corporate practices that appear to be environmentally responsible without actually representing a change in how a company conducts its business. The cost, which is the main disadvantage of CSR, is that the cost does fall disproportionately on small businesses. Major corporations can afford to allocate a budget to CSR reporting, but this is not always open to smaller businesses with between 10 and 200 employees. A small business can use social media to communicate its CSR policy to consumers and customers and local community, but it does take time to monitor exchanges and could involve hiring extra personnel that a business may not have because of their budget. Linking the following innovations to my case studies being both of Pandora Papers and Red Bull. Pandora Papers, I'd recommend piercing the veil, as holding corporations accountable with limited liability is essential. We know that within Pandora Papers, we had banks as well as independent bodies and corporations responsible, so therefore investigating thoroughly into this recommendation, holding specific companies at blame, is crucial and probably the best option for deterrence. Red Bull, I'd also suggest Carroll's Pyramid, so CSR, as we had involved the community and other aspects of the pyramid, and we looked at laws of false advertisement, and there was an overall response. Therefore, I would suggest this recommendation to again deter the crimes. So these are the international responses and recommendations. I'm going to talk about the International Criminal Court, which tries individuals as well as representatives of the state, and this is one of the best defenses potentially against state corporate crime. And I want to talk about resistance, which is the idea to challenge consumers and employees. So criminal court currently only hears international crimes of war, genocide, and crimes against humanity. So a lot of people have already suggested that we can use this amazing international court that investigates significant crimes that affect many people day to day. So using this structure already could be beneficial to us in the corporate crime we hear. As the means by center, you have to implement the independent body that no matter where the kind of corporation is located, they can still use and utilize these. When we discuss the traditional measures, this would be one. But when we talk about resistance, it's giving an educative response. It's having protests, boycotts, all of these to implement a grand change. And I think these are very beneficial within today's society, as it is, we are living in a globalized society. Generation to generation, there's great differences. So implementing social media as an aspect that can look as an international response would be very crucial. So some limitations within these new innovations are ICC currently only hears international crimes. It calls for including corporate crimes that occur on widespread scales. However, that is not implemented as of yet. Limited by sovereignty and voluntary participation. So that idea that jurisdiction is necessary in order to punish people, and once they are put into a different country, you're not able to do so. With resistance, it may be an ideal thing, so it's an idealistic view of the world, and it is not practical. However, practicality is not always essential, and having free thinking is sometimes the most beneficial thing, according to Toombs and White. They suggest more people idealizing things is more beneficial and a way of thinking for the future, and to be more beneficial to deter and stop such crime. The recommendations specific for these case studies would be both valid, so that is resistance and the ICC. The International Criminal Court is a sufficient body that has been rejuvenated with the additional implementation of corporate crime, now being able to be investigated. This new intervention is a great body to utilize, as it can look at both states and individuals, which is perfect for the case study of Qantas Airlines. It highlights many areas that a global jurisdiction can now in fact deter such crimes like cartel. Pandora Papers also have issues with independent bodies and individuals. As we see with the Qantas airline, everyone was punished within their own jurisdiction, so the barrier of sovereignty is in fact an issue that would limit the ability to respond. However, as mentioned, the ICC would be able to overlook such activities, therefore making jurisdictional responses. Pandora Papers is looking more at how individuals can be targeted. There are three main bodies that are supposed to have regulation and laws that deter and manage such crime. Therefore, resistance would be perfect and beneficial, as they target those people and help protect and mandate new legislation, making sure all individuals and companies involved are held accountable. I'm a valid associate investigator in trying to better understand and apply policy, as well as investigate allegations where corporate crime may have arisen. It's my duty to make certain recommendations to government, as I have, agencies making sure to uphold the quality of life, keeping corporations, regulatory agencies, and states accountable for all their actions.